Welcome back to the channel. So this is September. It is September, what is it? It's September 10th. All right. So in the last podcast, I mentioned that we would have craft along starting in September, and each month would have a theme. This month is back to school because it is September. So all the projects we do will be based on that. So the first one we're going to do today is a beading craft along, and it is to make, we're going to make this other set or other one of these earrings. See if you can see that. And it is an apple, if you couldn't tell. And then we'll make the other one. And then we'll have a special announcement at the end of the video after we finish making the other one of this to have our set of apple earrings. You could either gift this to your favorite child's teacher or keep them for yourself, but they do go well with our theme. So I just got my, as you can see here, I graphed out my pattern. I just used a simple perler bead pattern. I typed in mini perler bead pattern apple Pinterest, and Pinterest is a great place to get free patterns. And I just graphed it out in here so it's easier to see instead of on my phone. Sometimes it's easier just to draw it out if it's not too big. And then actually today we're going to use, instead of using beads, well, these are technically beads, they're perler beads, but they're the plastic perler beads, and these ones are the mini perler beads. They mimic the same effect as like a seed bead. They're that size, more or less. And they stack well, as you can see on the example here. They stack and lay nicely together right here. So we'll go ahead and show you how to do that. And we're also going to show you how to add the little earring holder to put through your ear so you can wear it as an earring. Yeah, suppose you could also, if you didn't want to make these into earrings, you could do one of them and you could put a pin back on the back and it could be a pin. So the possibilities are kind of endless. All right, so let's go over what you're going to need. You're going to need beading thread. I'm using this Wildfire Bead-A-Lon. Unfortunately, I've pulled the label off. I think it's a 0.7, but you just want to make sure that it is a good sturdy weight and that it will go through your beads and hold them nicely without breaking. This is a white. You can use any color you wish, but you want to try to match it as close to your colors because you are going to see the sides. Not much, but you will see the thread on the sides. So if you had a lot of dark beads, you probably wouldn't want white. You'd want a darker thread. And I said the mini perler beads or any beads that you would wish. Seed beads would be good, but any beads that you see fit. You want to make sure the size is a little small because you don't want them to be too big, then the earring will be really big. You need some jewelry findings. These are the little earring, little hoop earring thing, and some jump rings. I happen to have these on hand in a little kit that I have, but you can find those at any craft store. And then I have these beading needles here from the Bead Buddy. These are really nice because they're flexible. Let me see if I can open them up. They're really nice. They give you 3 different kinds. The eyes are really easy to use. They're very flexible. However, when I'm using these beads, I always do my own thing when it comes to craft. I don't always do what you're supposed to. So I'm actually using one of my embroidery needles because it seems to fit in the bead well, and I think I have better control over it. And the stitch that we're going to be doing is called a square stitch. And that is because when you're working these beads together, you're going to be moving your needle around and sewing them together like a square, like this. Now, some people confuse this with a ladder stitch. It is similar in how it works, except if you see here, here's an example of the ladder stitch. Let me see if I can zoom in. And you can see how it sits kind of like a ladder like this. And this is from other videos I've seen and things I've read on. This is a good starter point for like the brick stitch. which I hope to have a tutorial about later. But if you try to do this with a square stitch, because the way if you see here the way these sit, these are going this way and those are going this way. These are up and down, these are on their side. So you couldn't really add to this because it's going to be on top of both of these, which is what you want with the brick stitch or the peyote stitch. With this one, you want them to sit next to each other, so it really isn't going to work that well. But that is the difference. You can see that. And I can even show you with a bead, I can string it up and show you how if I tried to put them on. If I came up and got a bead here and tried to put that on there like that. You can see where the bead would sit in the middle of those like that. And what you want for the square stitch is to sit on top of, not on both. So that is why that would not work very well at all. But I just wanted to give you that little pointer there. So we are actually going to be doing the square stitch, and don't worry, we are going to go step by step and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so give me just a second and let me get situated and we'll get started. Okay, so as you can see here, I have my bead laid out on this little mat. Actually, I mean, it's a good idea to have a beading mat as well. This is not, however, this is just a big long piece of felt that I had, a felt square, extra large felt square I had, but it works just as well. So cost wise, a piece of felt will work just fine, but it helps your beads not to run all over, and it's nice to have them out like this to access them. So the way we're going to start is we're going to follow this pattern, and you'll see, I'll show you, we're going to have to do some increasing and some decreasing. You'll see as we go that the decreasing going up is easier than the decrease going down. It's also easier to decrease than increase when going up. I try to start at the bottom of the pattern down here and work your way up. And you'll just want to just continue to follow back and forth with your pattern. I always flip my work so that I'm coming up from the bottom to the top. And I'll show you what that means in a minute. But you'll also see how we have these two here and two here. When we do this pattern, you're actually going to start with your first full row, because with the square stitch, you actually start with your first whole row of beads on as your starter row. And so you can't really use this as your first row because you're missing that section there. And so you have to do a decrease going toward the bottom to get that to work, which I'll show you in a second. So what you're going to do according to our pattern right here is we're going to go ahead. First, I'm going to show you, we're going to put on a stopper bead. If you have a spring, they sell them, these little springs that you can stick on there to stop your beads from coming off. That is fine. I'm just going to use one of our little beads we have here, and I'll show you how to do that. So you're going to put the bead on your needle, and you want about an arm's length, or a good length of thread, depending on your project. You can add more thread if you need to. It is a little bit tricky, but you can do it. And with the one I did, for demonstration purposes, I did have to do so. But if you just hold the thread out and pull out, I don't know, a yard or so, you should be good for this. Maybe a little more, but basically about a yard or so. All right, so the bead is all the way down to almost the end. You're going to want to leave a little tail because you're going to weave that in. And to make this be a stopper bead, you're just going to see how the thread is coming out at the bottom. Let me see if I can zoom that in. So, come here. Okay, see how this thread is coming out of the bottom? This is the thread that's connected to our needle. You're going to come in from the top where the thread's coming out that's connected to our tail, and just going to make a big circle. Hold that tail thread so that it doesn't come out, because the whole point of this is to get it to stop. That's why it's called the stopper bead. Okay, so now that's stuck on there. like this. And that's going to help the beads when we load them on our needle from coming off. Okay, so now we are going to, according to our pattern, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 starters. The starter row has 7 beads. So we're going to pick up 7 beads on our needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's okay to let them go if you need to, because like you have this said, you have that stopper bead. 3. Let's see, one more makes 7. Okay, let those go all the way down to the end. So they're down there at the end near the stopper bead. See, you can check it doesn't come off. Okay, so now, like I said, I always like to, I find it best you do it the way you need to, but I find it best to start at this bottom that's connected to your needle, because then you're working this way, and it just, for me, is easier to hold. But you can figure whichever way is easiest for you, but this is the best way that works for me. Okay, so now we're going to pick up the next bead. Now, this is one of the tricky things. So we're going to start with this next row. But in order to do that, and we're actually going to skip this one here, which would look like what, according to the pattern, looks like our first row. We'll come do that toward the end. So this is technically our first row, and you're going to start up here, but you can't just put on those 2 because your thread would show here. So you're going to what you have to do is you pick up the bead that's right directly above your first one here on that first row. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're going to pick up another red bead. And so you see how the thread's coming out of the bottom. We're going to go in the top of the bead right there. So let me zoom in so you can see that. It's kind of hard to see a little bit because the way I have to hold it, but I'll try to get it in there as best I can. Okay, so this is our first bead. We're going to come in through the top with your needle and come out the bottom. See how I'm coming out the bottom? And then just pull the thread through. And you're going to probably have to try to work your bead there. See how it looks there? You just want to pull it till it kind of sits on top of it, like that. And it will kind of do that for you. But the first couple rows are a little tricky because they're a little loose and they want to play on you. And then to secure it, you're going to come back up through this bead that you just added so that your needle is coming out of it and on the top, facing your stopper bead. And just pull that till it's really tight. And that is your first set of beads. Now we can't add this bead here until we come back the other way, and I'll show you why. Because if we tried to go back and add this bead now, this is what I was saying, you'd have your thread showing right here, like a line like this, and we don't want that. So we'll go across, we'll continue on across this line till we get to the end, and then I'll show you how to add that bead. So we'll pick up that other bead when we come back this way. All right, so now we're going to pick up another red bead for your next bead. And you would pick up whichever bead is in your pattern. Ours just happens to be red. Do the same thing you just did with the other one. I'm going to stick it in through the top. And you want to come out the bottom of that bead you're working on. See how it's not coming out both of them? It's just coming out this one here at the top. I'll hold that right there so you can see that. Okay, and then just like the other one, go ahead and pull your thread. And you can see if I go slowly how it forces it on top of the next bead. And then you come back into the bead that you just strung on. And pull it tight. So I'll meet you down at the other end. Okay, so how is it going? Are you getting down to the end? I just want to show you where I'm at. I have one last bead to do. We're almost to the stopper bead. And as you can see, we have one more bead left to go on this row. And then we have the one we have to add to make it jump up to the next. So we have one more bead to go here. And then we're going to add this one and the next one in the same stitch. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But I just wanted to show you, don't be discouraged. Your first row is going to look really fiddly, kind of like this. It's going to look a little wonky. Just kind of play with it. Just make sure you keep your tension really good and tight when you're doing this. Tension is really a key in this stitch and any beading that you do, because you want them to stay fairly tight. So that they stay nice and straight for you. But just, you know, practice makes perfect. It's taken me a while to be able to do this, and I can't even say that I'm perfect. So, okay, so we're going to add the last bead. If I can get it on my needle there. Come on. Okay. So we're going to add this last bead. All right. All of a sudden my fingers don't want to play nice today. Okay. You want to make sure you keep your thread out in front of your project too. You don't want it to go behind and get messed up. Okay, so there we're technically done with the second row. We do have a couple more beads to add, but I wanted to show you that at this point you can go ahead and unthread. You can go ahead and unthread your stopper bead. And take them right off right there. And then if you want to unthread your needle really quick, I'll show you how to hide that thread. And this is how you're going to do with when you're done with the project. And also if you want to reinforce, sometimes it's nice to go back and forth through the beads, because that way you can reinforce them and they get strong and stay strong and sturdy. So I'm going to try and thread this through my needle. I may have to cut it to get a good edge to go through. Just a second. Had a little knot or something on the end I didn't want to go through. And if you're having trouble getting it on, you can always use a needle threader. In fact, I'm going to get mine out right now because I'm having a little bit of difficulty with this thing here. And just give me just a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have the needle now threaded onto the thread now onto the needle. And what you're going to do is we're going to go back through the work. So just kind of where the thread's coming out, if you just flip it over, and it can go right through the one we have our other thread on. Just kind of feed the needle through the existing beads. Just kind of pull it through really tight, and you're going to weave it through again. Like that. You can do it again or another time if you really feel it necessary. I just think that 2 times is fine, and then you just snip that end off, and then that hides it in there and also secures that first row. Now my scissors kind of suck, Okay, then you're going to thread your needle back to the thread that was coming off of there before. And I'll have to use my needle threader again. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to start the next row by also adding this last bead and starting the top row. So what you're going to do is make sure your work's going the correct way. Okay, so you're actually going to feed 2 beads onto your needle. One and 2. Okay, now if you flip over your work, we feed all of those beads down to the end, like so. What you're going to do is you're going to hold that 1 bead as close to you as you can to the one that's the last one we just did, and then you're going to do the stitch we've just been doing every time for the other one. And as you pull very slowly, it'll land right on top, just like that. Pull it tight and then shove the needle back through it. Just like that. So now you can see that we've added a bead and started the next row. And what's good about this next row is that it starts our solid of rows of, and it has 4 rows where it goes that far out. But now when you come down to the end here, that's when we will add our other bead, and it'll be similar in the way we just added this one. But you have, that's what I said when it's kind of weird how you have to decrease coming down to add a row. You would think you'd just add it going up, but you have to do it in steps back and forth. And it's just the way the stitch works, unfortunately. But it will pay off in the end. So then now we're just going to work this row the exact same way we did the other ones. It's very repetitious, but it will help you learn that way. And pull our bead, top of the next one. Remember, you just have to make the beads do what you want them to do. Like so. And you can use all different kinds of beads, like I said. I mean, these are the, like I said, the mini perler beads, so they're plastic. But they seem to work great for me. I like them because they're all uniform, so they sit nicely next to each other. All right, I'll meet you down at the end, and I'll show you how to add on from that other row. Okay, so we've come to the last one in this row, as you can see here. So we're going to go ahead and add that like normal. Okay, so now to match the pattern like that we have here, we are going to have to add 2 beads, a bead here and a bead there. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to do just like we did before when we added down here, except we're going to go back down into the bottom row below it. instead of coming up to make a new row. So pick up 2 beads, come in, go ahead and flip your work, come in through there, and come out through there, and we're going to pull the beads. Going to probably have to fiddle with them a little bit. Okay, oops. Then you're going to come back down through here, and you want to come back down through both of them. And again, come back through here just to reinforce this. Come down a few, then come out, so that way you can reinforce this end here really well. And this gets a little bit tricky, but this is the way to do this. You just got to keep fiddling with the beads and make it do what you want them to do. You're the boss. Okay, so now after you see that we've reinforced the ends, you can see how those are starting to sit next to each other quite nicely. Okay, so now skipping those bottom 2 pieces, we should, starting here in that row in that way, that we should match the pattern. And since our next row is just identical, the amount of beads as the one before it, we don't, the glory part is not only are we in the right hole for this one now, but we don't have to add any more beads. We can just, for 2 rows, we're just literally going to go back and forth, doing what we've been doing with the stitches. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you back here in a second. Okay, so before we go too far, I have come down, if you're following along, we have come to the end of our rows of 4 high of rows of, let's see, it looks like 9 beads across. And so you should look something like this. Oops, sorry, I didn't realize it wasn't in the picture. Should look something like this. They're coming together very nicely. But as you can see, I'm running really low on thread. So what you're going to do is just like I showed you before. This is nice because you can reinforce it too. This also is good because we can go ahead and add those 4 beads down here in the bottom that we were going to come back to later. So what I'm going to do is have you go, if you are like me and running out of thread, you're just going to go back through and do the reinforcing like I told you. So just shove your needle all the way through, back and forth, until you run out of thread, and then you will clip it. And then you will go ahead and then you'll go ahead and get you a new piece of thread, feed it back through a few times, and then we will go ahead and add those other beads. So give me just a second and I'll meet you right back. All right, so I got more thread on my needle here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna reinforce or run it back through here a couple times. And I want to go so that I'm going to end up on the bottom. So if you pull it in here, you can leave a little bit of a tail there to clip off there in a second. And then I'm going to come back down through here. I'm actually going to come out right here because I'm trying to ultimately get to where I need to be. Oops, I'm stuck on something off camera. Okay. And don't pull too tight because you don't want to pull your tail. Well, I guess you actually could. You don't have to snip it. If you wanted to very carefully pull your tail until it goes into the work. And then there you go. Okay, so on the pattern, as you can see here, as you come in 1 bead on each side, because we're going to have 2 there. So I actually need, if you see, I actually need to come in because I want to be right there, ready to go for the next bead. So I'm actually going to go back in here where I'm coming out of, and I'm going to come out 2 down. Okay, now don't pull too hard. Remember, we're still kind of anchoring from the adding the thread. And a couple more stitches here, we should be able to pull it tight. Okay, so then we want to come back out this one. And I'll show you up here like that. I'm going to come back out this one. And that's going to set us up to do those 2 at the bottom, or those 4 at the bottom that we're missing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and grab a red bead. And then just like we've always been doing, come in that next bead. Pull it till it lays on top. And then feed it through the top. And give me just a second and I'll show you where the next one. Okay, technical difficulties. My kitty jumped up here and moved my beads, so I had a little bit, I had to fix them up, got them a little bit everywhere. But anyway, so now we have come to the part where we have added the 2 of these 2 here, and we're going to add those 2 there. So it should look something like this. See if you can see that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go in through this bead here. So let me zoom in so you can see that. Okay, so you're going to go in through this bead here. Just like this. Pull the thread. And it should go in there nicely and hide so you still can't see it. And then now we're set up and ready like you see for the next bead. So go ahead and pick up a red bead. Come in through the top one. Just like that. Pull it, pull it, pull it until it lays flat. And then come up through the bead. Okay. Now we need one more red one. It should sit nicely. Oops. Okay, so now this is how it should look. And I'll lay it down here so you can see. I'll kind of zoom in so you can see that it does starting to look like the example here. We've got the 2 little ends here. And we're about halfway. So now we got 2 more rows of red, and then we're going to do the stem and the leaves. The leaves at the end are a little bit tricky because you see how they sit off to the edge by themselves. So that's a little bit tricky. You'll have to reinforce those really well. All right, so now to get back to where we were. Whoops. You will want to just feed through just like I told you about how we're reinforcing. So you're just going to take a couple minutes here and just feed back through. And I'll meet you back here when we're back at the top. Okay, so now we're back at the top, right here. And we're going to start this row here with the red and the brown for the stem. So we're going to take 1 red bead and do it like normal. Well, really the next 2 are going to be just like we always have. I suppose really this whole row we're just changing colors of the beads. So we're going to put that one down like that. Okay, so there's 1. And get another red bead. Just like so. Okay, so there is our 2 beads. Okay, so now we're going to take a brown bead, because that's going to be the first part of our stem. You know what? Actually, I am wrong, and this is why you pay attention to your pattern. So, we still have this row here left to do before we can do the stem row. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way till I get here, and then I'll meet you back here in just a second. Okay, so I wanted to stop and show you that this is where you should be, and I apologize for skipping ahead like I was just a minute ago, but I was not paying attention. So now we should be here, and you notice in this row we had the decrease. So I want to show you how to do the decrease like that, and it's fairly simple to do. Actually, it's the easiest way to go when you're going up. So we're going to come into this one here, and go up 2 of them. All right, because we're setting ourselves up to come back down to where we need to be. So then you're going to come into this bead here. All right, so then when you come out of it, we'll be all set and ready to go for where we need to be, just like we have before. So now we're going to take our red bead and do just like normal, changing color where the stem was. And I'll show you. There we go. And just so you're aware, for those of you who are following along with this craft along, I will be posting a picture of the pattern that I use for the apple on my Instagram. So if you'd like to take a screenshot or print off the picture so you have that as your reference, I welcome that 100%. Like I said, I don't own the rights to the pattern. I did get it free from Pinterest. So you could go that way and get an apple pattern that way. But if you'd like this one, I will have a picture of it on my Instagram page. So check that out and give me a comment on it and let me know that you stopped by. And if you have any questions, by all means, post it on my Instagram and ask me about it. There's also a lot of great stuff on my Instagram. Pictures of projects I have or whips I have in progress. We have links in the bio to my shop. I have a shop on Facebook and also on my website. A lot of good stuff, and that's about that way there. And on my Facebook page is where it's the best place to keep informed of what's going on. And I always post when there's a new video so that you know. But by all means, if you'd like to, if you like what you've been seeing and you like what what's going on here, and we're on our craft along, hit that like button on this video, and by all means subscribe. And if you'd like to continue to you know, updated as to when those are coming on, when I post new ones, hit that little bell. That'll give you a notification when I post a new video so that you are ready for that. So now we're done with that row, and we're going to set ourselves back up to do this one here, this row here. So as before, we're just going to finagle our needle through until we're ready to until we're at the stitch or the bead that we need to be at. So if you are doing it correctly, we should be right here. Our string should be sticking out there. We should be right underneath this bead. And then we're going to pick up another brown bead. Also, I would love to see pictures of what you've created for this stitch, for this craft along. I love seeing my fans and my So What family posting pictures of what they've done. And it doesn't even have to be pictures of this. You can post pictures of other beaded work you've done. You can post them here in the comments, or you could and I'll maybe feature those in a future video when I answer different questions. And or you could post them on my Facebook page. There's a link to my Facebook group. You could post it there, show everybody what you've been working on and what's in your craft room. But yeah, I'm always open to seeing those. I love seeing people's creative ideas. So yeah, so go ahead and definitely do that. And like I said, if you ever have any questions on any kind of crafting, anything, whatever the craft may be, go ahead and message me. Get a hold of me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, on here, comment. I'll be happy to get answers for you. And like I said, I plan on, if I get enough of those, get a video going on that to answer questions and maybe help other people out that's had those issues. So, all right, so now in our pattern, we've come to the leaf. So we're going to go ahead and grab a green bead now. And we're going to add that green just like that. And honestly, once you get going the knack of this, it really becomes repetitive. You get a rhythm going, and you'll be amazed what you will be able to do with this. There are so many patterns out there. I use the perler bead pattern for this one, but because this is worked like squares, I mean, if you look at it here, they lay right on top of each other. You could use any kind of cross stitch pattern. The possibilities are endless with that. All the types of different cross stitch books that we have available to us. It's just amazing the things that you can do with this stuff. So, you can use any kind of pattern that can be graphed out, you could do so. Okay, so now we're going to come to the little tricky part. So, remember before when we wanted to add a row, you had to add it backwards. So we don't necessarily add that yet. We have to add it on the way back. And this one's gonna be a little tricky because I had to add, if you notice on the pattern here, it has 2 green beads there. I actually added a third because I found that it made it easier to stabilize that. So, and it looks just as good. So that's what we're going to do here. So what we're going to do is pick up a green bead and continue like normal on the next row. And I apologize about my lighting. It is very gloomy here today in Michigan. And we're going to continue like we have been. Just adding those beads. Get another green one. Continue along. And then we're going to get the last brown one. I'll also try in the description box of this video, try to tell you how many beads of each color you'll need for this particular pattern. All right, so this is what your work should look like right now. Now, normally, in order to add those beads on the end, we would come back in the next row here, and we would then continue on and add them. But because we don't technically have another row, we're going to have to kind of do that reinforced stitch and kind of work our way back up here to add that. So what you're going to do is I want you to come back down through the bottom row, and then I want you to come back up this one right there. This is going to set you up to add that next bead that I added to make the pattern work, and then 2 more. So go ahead and grab a bead and work it like you normally would. Let it sit right on top there. Okay, and this is where it gets tricky. So remember, we're going to flip it over because we're technically coming back the other way. We're going to grab 2 beads. Actually, looking at the pattern, we're going to grab 3 beads. Okay. Push them all the way down to the end so that they're sitting on your work like this. And we're going to hold 2 of those and bring this other one around with that stitch we've been doing. So come up. See if I can get that on camera easily. So we're going to push that up as close as we can. Come down through this bead here. It's a little bit tricky to hold this, and I apologize if it's not on camera very well because it is kind of hard to hold and do. We want to make sure we keep that tension, keep that bead, those beads up there, and then pull and force that bead on top like that. And then come back up like normal. Okay, so what we should have would look like this. And now we're going to grab another bead. And then just continue to work it like normal. This is going to seem a little flimsy, but you can go ahead and go back and reinforce it so that it isn't as wobbly. And trust me, it scared me as much as it's probably scaring you. When I was making that first one, I kept thinking, oh geez, this is going to come apart. It's really flimsy, but I just kept working my needle back and forth, doing the reinforcing, and it will work. So that is your apple. All right, give me just a second and we're going to come back, and when we come back, I'm going to announce that special surprise I was talking about. Okay, so thank you for sticking around with this tutorial. What I'm doing now is when you're finished with your work, you're going to go ahead and weave in your ends just like we do the reinforcing stitches. Weave them in a few times back and forth all the way through, and then remember you can pull it all the way through like this. And then we can just go ahead and snip that right off of there, and it will work quite nicely. Okay, so now what you should have is your apple like this. We have 2 of them here. So, and then what you would need is your little finding. So you would have this little doodad here, the part that goes in your ear, and the ring. And if you're not familiar with the jump rings, you just take flat nose pliers are best. However, right now all I have confined at my disposal is my round nose pliers. So I'm going to use them. So we're going to find the end that's split and kind of force them apart a little bit. And you like to use 2 pieces of pliers so that you can get a good grip on it. But these ones are not the best. You just kind of pry them apart so that they're open. See if I can get that on camera, like so. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to loop this through one of the beads, and I put it through the brown because it just was easier to wiggle it through there, like so. And then plop your little earring guy on there, and then we're going to bend this little guy back to where he came from. Put him back where he came from. Oh, so once you do that, you will have your earring, and then you have your set of earrings for that special teacher or even for yourself to celebrate kids going back to school. Alrighty, so as I was saying, as I finished this little thing up, there was a special surprise I was going to announce at the end. And what that is I'm going to do my first giveaway. And what it is going to entail is you're going to win this set of apple earrings that we made in the video today. You get these 2 apple earrings here as a prize for sticking around here with the craft along, hanging out with me. So right here, let me put them in camera so you see them. So what you need to do to win these earrings is be a subscriber to the channel, like this video, and leave me a comment down below on this video. And it can be anything from just saying hi. It can be, whatever you want to say. Question, if you want to leave a picture of what you've made, anything you want to tell me or ask. And then I will pick so at the end of, let's see, today is the 10th. So I will upload the next video a week from today. So on the 17th, so at midnight on the 16th, so Sunday night at midnight, this contest will end for this video. And I will use a random comment picker program, and I will pick a random comment at random, and that person will win these earrings for your special teacher or just for you. But I figured I'd give away something as a special gift for following along and being a subscriber and hanging out with us as we do our very first annual or monthly craft along, themed craft along. And so go ahead and hit that like button, comment, and be a subscriber, and you will earn your chance to win these lovely earrings. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And I hope I was able to explain the best I could. I'm still getting used to my camera and my angles and things like that, but it's all a process. And mid-March, September of this month, we'll be having our second podcast, and we'll go over different, maybe if I have different questions that need to be answered, or different whips are in progress, or we'll talk about what's going to go on next month, and all of that sort of stuff. So stay tuned. Like I said, check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and always here on Facebook at So What Home Party. And as always, so what is in your craft room today?